They just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness.
Awesome. Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest is a part 2 conversation, so if you haven't listened to episode 28 yet, go on back and listen to 28 to get the first part of the conversation where we dive into a little bit of his origin story. But this is another podcaster in the Philly area who I really, really enjoy. I binge listen to his show as I catch up. He's got 50 episodes, or he's coming up to 50. He's on 49 episodes that just released this week. And I was that guest for episode 49. And it sounds like episode 50 is going to be his Philadelphia Podcast Fest episode that's happening this Sunday. 2 days, guys. 2 days until the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. I can't stress that enough. August 21st, 2 p.m. at Tattooed Moms on South Street is when Everything is Awesome's going live. It's going to be me. It's going to be Mike as my co-host. It's going to be Garrett doing some comedy. It's going to be Orlando Berrios kicking my ass into shape. That's right. It's going to be a good time, guys. And make sure you hang out till 7 p.m. because our guest this week, Dan Drago from the 25 O'Clock podcast, is going to round the night out and close out the first weekend of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. Yes, so there it is. Our guest, part 2, is Dan Drago from 25 O'Clock Podcast. I adore his podcast. I hold it up there with the other ones that I really enjoy when it comes to long-form interview. I think he does it really well. His production is, now that I've been in his underground layer, the production is just a fun way that it happens. Seeing how he does his show is great. Seeing the before and after now of how the show is recorded. I'm a nerd. I'm a podcast nerd when it comes to that stuff. So it was really cool seeing that. Anyway, we're going to get into some more Dave Matthews Band. I've never talked about Dave Matthews as much as I have in the course of these 3 episodes, meaning episodes 28 and 29 of Everything is Awesome and episode 49 of 25 O'Clock Pod. That is so much Dave Matthews talks about. We also nitpick our podcast pet peeves, and we also find out that China is anti 25 O'Clock Podcast. Really weird stuff. All that and more coming up right here, only on Everything is Awesome on awesomepodcast.com. Oh, and also follow us on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. Follow me on Twitter at HHWST. We'll see you later. Happy Podfest week, and oh God, I'm sorry. Before we get to the show, if you can make it launches tonight, the Philadelphia Podcast Fest, with our good buddy Jeff Stormer from Party of One Podcast. So make sure on Frankfurt Ave is Amalgam Comics. I think I said that right. It's a coffee house and comic book shop. I'm not going to be able to make it there, unfortunately, because it's by the time I get out of work and get down to the city, he'll be halfway done his show. So I can't go out and support it, but I want all the super friends to go out to Philly tonight and go support Party of One Podcast. They're doing a little spiritual sequel to I think it's episode 14, one of the best episodes of his podcast. So listen to episode 14, then go check that out. But in the meantime, let's just get on with my show, episode 29 with Dan Drago, right here on Everything is Awesome on awesomepodcast.com.
Crash or Satellite, you would learn how to play both those songs. And Satellite is a rough song to learn how to play. That's a very interesting guitar pattern.
I envy, guys like you who can, pick up a guitar and like figure things out, or you can even just be taught how to play and do it. I have an acoustic guitar. I can't play it. I don't know. I'm also partially tone deaf. I'm fully tone deaf. And so I have this desire to sit down and play, and like, it's just one of those things where, like, well, I don't have time for it. I got to deal with the kids. And, like, right now, Everything is Awesome is my baby right now as far as, like, what I want to, like, do for fun. And so it's one of those things that, like, as it's on my list of, like, all right, I want to write, direct, I want to go on tour with my podcast, and I want to learn how to play guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Guitar
I mean,
is nice to have too in the background, even if you're not any good at it, even if you're not going to play it in public. I have found ever since I kind of came off the touring kick, is that I sort of fell back in love with just playing, like not for an audience and not with like sort of an end game in mind, but just like sitting down. And a lot of it had to do with me kind of setting up my room and having everything completely accessible so I could just pick up an electric guitar, plug in through my effects, and just sort of zone out. I've really just fallen back in love with the aimless, just what it would sound like to anyone was aimless noodling, like just sort of playing, and I might start to play a song that I know and go off from that, and just sort of just the act of playing and sort of shutting off part of your brain and turning on the other part of your brain that like has to engage to play an instrument. I like that.
I envision one day just like sitting around my fire pit that I'm hopefully building this year and like
hopefully building
and just sitting around and being able to pick up a guitar while I'm sitting around with the kids and probably up at that point my then wife, who's my fiance now, but like just kind of and just picking up the guitar and just kind of just strumming, like you said, just strumming random notes that may turn into a song.
Yeah. For me, it's
just
like an aimless tick now too. If I sit down with a guitar, I don't even necessarily, unless I make the conscious decision that I'm going to play something right now, I'll just sit there and do stuff, like not even scales. It's just stuff. Much of it useless.
No, I one of my, even though I'm not into like music, like I can't tell you any of like the current bands.
I probably
and
couldn't either. So,
but I do love like when I can see someone that's super talented playing guitar, like I'll zone out, maybe not even be listening to the music, but be like watching the performance.
Yeah.
Which is like that to me. Everything, whether it's music or wrestling or writing or podcasting, it all kind of goes to like a storytelling entertainment perspective. And you know, if I just I love being entertained, I guess is you know, if you can capture my imagination and be good at it, you win the day, because I'm not necessarily a snob, because I do forgive a lot of, like, especially in TV and movies, like I'll forgive a lot of bad acting and bad writing as long as your story from A to B is good.
Yeah.
So if you can capture, and so it's not really hard, but it can be at times. It can be, because I do have a 3-episode rule with everything. So.
I have a similar thing with records, that my brother Dave actually he put words to it. I didn't really know what to call. He calls it 5 spins for a friend. So if someone says like, "Oh man, you got to listen to this record," like if it's, you know, it has to be the right person, but like, you know, someone who's obviously their opinion that you trust and whose taste that you trust, it gets 5 spins. Even if the first 2 spins are just like, I don't know what I'm doing. What is this? Why am I listening to this? And I've done that with a lot of bands that kind of come back around. I thought I hated Vampire Weekend for the longest time too, until someone spun their second record for me enough times. I was just like, wait, no, this is fantastic. And now I'm just a straight up fan. Like, I just think they're a great band. Not so much a great live band, but they're a phenomenal band on record. And I did the same thing with like the Black Keys, where I liked them in the beginning because they were super, super dirty and bluesy and garagey. Kind of didn't like them becoming arena darlings, and then went back and listened to like that kind of breakout music of theirs and realized like, oh man, this stuff is just great. Like, they're just so good at this. Like, how could I not dig this? And then kind of come back around. Yeah,
that's I can see that with music. Like, that's how, I mean, eventually, I mean, I get like going back to Dave Matthews Band, like I've heard it so many times, I eventually started to dig it. Like,
go get that Luther College record though. Like, that's,
no,
if you're starting to have a bit of a renaissance with them right there, like kind of go back to the stuff stripped down and like really hear it.
And that's my favorite performance is acoustic.
Like, he does a version of like of Halloween on there. Just him and him and two guitars. Tim doesn't really make much of a peep on that record except that he plays. And just to hear him strip it down and to hear like the real range of his voice and like just how he can emote, like it's easy to cast it. I did not think that we'd have as much of a conversation about Dave Matthews as we're having right now.
No,
but like
neither did I.
But it's easy to cast off Dave Matthews' style of singing as a caricature because like it's a very unique, not particularly normal sound of singing. So it's easy to kind of pass off as almost cartoony. But when you really get down to the way he sings, you're just like, he's incredibly talented, and he is doing some non-normal singing right here. I mean, not non-normal. He's engaging. His tone and his cadence and everything is not. It's not the norm. Like it's just not. It's not what you hear in stuff typically on the radio. The fact that they became like, that they had radio hits is often amazing to me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and they still are like huge. Like they still continuously tour and sell out the Tweeter Center or whatever it's called now. And
I'm a big Fish guy too, so like that's a whole other thing right there.
That's I mean, I've heard of them. I probably, and I'm sure I've heard something in the background. But
it's a rabbit hole that should one ever choose to fall down it, even without the aid of psychotropic drugs. Like if you just that's a world with many layers that will constantly have surprises for you, especially as a music person. Like any band that goes out and has that level of success and has been around for that long with no radio play, no MTV, really not that great record sales either. To be able to go out and create live performances that people will come back. I've been seeing Fish for almost 20 years at this point, since I was a teenager. And I still get excited when I'm like that, like minute when the lights go down and they come out and everyone's sitting there and be like, what are they going to play first? What are they going to play first? Like you have no idea because every show is different. Getting back to that whole thing where I like art that's challenging. And by challenging, I don't necessarily mean uncomfortable. I don't necessarily mean like avant. Like it doesn't have to be like weirdo, like weirdo art that like only a handful of people would want to be into. I just like stuff that is really just swinging for the fences, both arms. And if you miss, you miss. But hey, at least you tried.
No, totally. That's like a great motto for any medium, whether it be music,
any sort of undertaking, even not art, like not even artistic undertaking. Even like if you want to bake a cake, man, but you think that it would taste good if you put a different thing in it. Like, I don't know, man, try, and maybe it sucks, but the only way you're going to find out is...
this is a Friends reference, be Rachel and make the meat truffle. If you're not a fan of Friends, then you don't know.
I know I obviously know Friends because I was definitely around for its heyday. I'm reaching for the reference. I'm vaguely familiar with it.
So, and this is I'm surprised we've gone this long without me showing my Friends fan side. It is a Thanksgiving episode where Joey is living with the model because Chandler had moved in with Monica, and Ross and Joey want to go to the model's Thanksgiving party, but they have to stay because for whatever reason, and Rachel made the dessert, but the pages stuck together. So it was supposed to be like some sort of
probably like
truffle,
chocolate truffle, but then puts meat in it.
But there was it was stuck to like a shepherd's pie or something.
Okay.
Page.
I do remember this now. Yeah.
So there was like the pudding and the jam, and then the meat and peas and mashed potatoes and whatnot. And that stands out as one of my favorite episodes of Friends.
That's true.
Because
make the meat truffle.
Yeah, because I'll try anything with meat in it. Like I would have eaten that. It may taste horrible, but if it's got meat, I'm in.
Yeah. And that's the joy of kind of doing what we do sometimes too as podcasters. Is that because there's no real spotlight on you or me right now in any way. Like, we've got our listeners, we've got our people who are into it, and we're always out there trying to bring in, trying to bring new people into the fold. And because, it's more fun if more people are into it. It's not even about money or
not anymore.
No, God, no. If it was, I would just, like, as I've often said, like, I already have work. And so why would I want work times two? If I'm going to spend the time, it's going to be enjoyable.
Yes, I mean, it's because it is quite literally a second job.
It can be, yeah.
I'm lucky enough to where, like, I even though I've only done one other actual live show, my background with podcasting, a majority of it is actually live broadcasting. On a streaming service,
like panel type stuff, like a bunch, like a few people together talking on a similar topic.
Well, but like we used to stream on back in the day. It was Stickcam was the popular thing, but it was like a Ustream or YouTube Live or whatever.
Yeah.
So we would broadcast to a live audience of anywhere to the low numbers of a couple hundred for the hour to like 10,000 people for the hour.
And it's interesting too, because as that was like sort of a new medium right there, you got people who just tuned in just to see what the heck anyone was doing, just like YouTube in its early days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
kind of posting whatever, and we were watching it. We're just like, it's there.
and it was for me, it was just such a great experience to do podcasting, because it really does saves me a lot of time, because I kind of like you mentioned earlier in the show, like where if a guest asks you to cut something out, then you'll do it. And I'm the same way. If something comes up and you're like, yo, can you cut out the stuff I said about the Nazis? Like, that'd be great. And I'll always say, yeah, that's sure. As long as I don't hit post first, like I can cut it out.
Yeah. Once it's out there, it's out there, man. Because even if I try and go back and edit it, it still went out there, and it's still a certain number of people heard it before. And then they're going to come back and be, why did you change that? And then it's embarrassing. So it's just like, let's just fix it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm lucky enough to where, like, normally it's on my show, at least, it's where I blunder and say something about like where I work, and I'm like, all right, well, edit point, I got to cut that out.
I edit stupid crap that I say all the time out. You should see how many times it takes me to do an intro sometimes. Like, I'll wipe out like 4 or 5 different things. Yep. Like, if you were to go back and listen to him, you would get to a point, be rolling, and be like, and the thing, and go to the thing. What the fuck? And just click like.
Yep.
I'm exactly the same way. Do you remember on Sesame Street the Beethoven Muppet who would play the piano, and he would bang his head on the piano when he couldn't do it right? No, I can't do it. And he would bang it on the piano. That's me very often in life.
No, I am the same way, because even though I tend to do the more showmanship intro instead of kind of doing the ambush intro, and then you do the pre-recorded or the post-production intro,
the bumpers,
I get in the habit of still doing those. So you kind of get 2 intros sometimes on my show. But all the time, and a lot of times my episodes, because I like to try to keep it to about in a per episode basis, no more than about 60 minutes. I figure that's a good attention span for people.
Yeah. I try and keep mine around there too, but sometimes it's hard to edit out that good stuff. Like sometimes you're just like, well, we're 75 minutes, but I don't care. This is good. Like,
well, and that's it. Like if the mark is an hour and 15 that I'll let it go to before I'm like, all right, well, like our episode will be split into 2 episodes, because we've officially hit the, assuming we recovered 10 minutes, we've hit at least an hour and a half at this point. And I have no problem cutting this into 2 45-minute episodes. And throwing it up, because I've done let's produce a 2.5-hour show.
Oh, that's insane.
And throw it up, and like
you're asking a lot of not even necessarily people that you're just asking a lot of strangers.
Yes.
To be like, could you spend? I won't spend 2.5 hours on like, I don't know, things made by people that I like much less a stranger.
Yeah, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and even the stuff he does when he gets to be over an hour and a half, I'm like, oh my God. I kind of want to listen to like this other podcast I have. So like the hour and 15 mark is like, I feel like the limit is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so that's when I'll start breaking things up into 2 episodes. And that's when I have to start all right, well now I got to record, an outro bumper and an intro bumper for part 2. And then sometimes I'll throw a commercial in just to like announce something like the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. And same way, like I literally will hit record on my phone because I usually do those bumpers on my phone.
Yeah.
It will take me about 30 to 45 minutes to record a total of 10 minutes of audio.
Yeah.
That I still have to edit afterwards to make it a little bit shorter and a little bit tighter.
I've tried to get more streamlined on my stuff too. I really am. And you get better at it. I mean, I'm 2 years in the game at this point, but I've been doing the game kind of the same way the whole time. So I haven't had to reinvent the wheel from week to week. I'm just refining the process, and like I joked before when I said you were in the beginning 20s of the episodes, and I joked, I said they get louder, like, because at some point someone, like a good friend has said to me, they're just like, I love listening to your show. They're like, but sometimes it's a little quiet and I really got to turn it up. And I was just like, oh, no one's ever given me that piece of criticism before. I can make it louder. Like I can do that.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if I even noticed that in your show because it's weird because a lot of shows have that problem, and I never really complain about it because all I have to do is turn it up.
Yeah, but at some point you don't want to turn it up anymore. Like,
and my show may even have that problem. I don't really know because when I listen to it on a volume that I'm okay with. What drives me crazy, and this is where like sometimes having to forgive the quality becomes an issue for me, is when like one person ends up being super loud and then everyone else is like normal volume and I have to like sit there because it's literally hurting my ears to listen to it loud, but then I can't hear the other people if I turn him down at a normal volume.
Yeah, and that is a lot of times is the product of, I mean, we can go there right now. Like I can start like name checking off my nitpicks with amateur podcasting, with like just various, like I have a list of things in my head that are don'ts, like don't do it. And I get asked a lot by people that I know or people who know people I know who will kind of send in my information to be like, hey, I know this friend of mine who's thinking of starting a podcast. Can they talk to you? And I'm like, absolutely, because I might be able to talk them out of it. And I again, and that sounds snobby. It sounds like I'm being a real dick right there. And it's very possible that's true. But I think that just because we can do this, that this is like an available option, doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be done. If I didn't have the connections into the like kind of the Philadelphia music world, like just through friends, like not even through any other sort of careerist position, just I know a lot of these cats and they know people, and that's kind of how it starts. It's just like, well, I've talked to people I know. Hey, who do you know? Oh, I know this guy's in a great band. Oh, I like that band. And then boom, that's how they come on. But if I didn't have those connections, I don't know what I'd talk about. Like I wouldn't have a podcast. I couldn't imagine going on and just being another guy who's just like, this is something new in indie rock record world that I want to talk about. I just couldn't do that. There's enough other outlets that do it way better. Then why would I try and be like, oh, it's like people are like, what's your podcast? Oh, I'm kind of like Pitchfork Media. I'd be like, yeah, Pitchfork Media exists, and there's a lot of money and quality behind their sort of media empire right there. Why would I try and be that? Why would I try and be All Songs Considered? All Songs Considered exists, and is done really, really well. So to me, it's always point of view. Like you need to have an interesting thing, and that's where kind of going regional, like what you and I do a lot of the times, is so important. It's so funny that we can be reached by literally anyone in the world who has internet and access to our stuff. No one in China, unfortunately, but and I know that for a fact. And I know that for a fact because when my father would travel on business, he'd be like, "Yeah, well, I couldn't get this week's episode because I was traveling." I was like, "Oh, you're in China again?" He goes, "Yep, they won't let me have your podcast in China." I was like,
really?
They won't let them have really a whole
And
lot of Western media.
Yeah. Okay,
China.
that makes
So
sense.
It's not personal. I don't think.
Yeah, it's just your podcast.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but
as far as I know, everything is awesome is in China. That's all I know.
every other podcast in the world is in China except mine. They're just like, not this guy. We don't like him.
We're gonna boot him out of our country.
But just because we can do it, what was I saying? Just because we can do it doesn't mean it needs to be done. And the cool thing to do with this is like, kind of like, it harkens back like to the old like 1980s and 90s zine culture where you would write about like bands in your town and you would write about bands that came through your town, and that was about it. Like if Black Flag wasn't playing in your town, like you might write about what you think about the new Black Flag 7-inch, but like you wouldn't do it all the time because there would be more pertinent things to be writing about in your sort of local area. And I feel that can really work for podcasting too. I think some of the more successful podcasts that aren't, from a national, from some sort of national media conglomerate, are things that kind of just focus on like your neighborhood, almost like your particular community, because there aren't a lot of people doing podcasts about sort of this like, Northeast Mid-Atlantic podcasters like what you're doing. And there aren't a lot of people who are doing podcasts about the types of musicians that I do my show on. I don't think so. I think after 2 years, I would have figured it out if there was someone else also doing what I do. I think, at some point we would have had a Rumble in the park or something, but
yeah, I mean, I just assume one day that it's going to be in the four corners of Love Park. Everything is awesome. 25 o'clock. This feels terrible. Girl on Guy. And we're gonna go in a Rumble for the supreme long form interview podcast.
No, I don't need to fight with anyone, and I still think it's Mark Maron's WTF. I think he broke the mold. He came up with he didn't come up with it. He just did it in his particular way. And I'm not going to lie and say that he is not an influence to me. He's a massive influence to me. I've been listening to him for years, to a point that I feel like I know him really, really well, and probably do to a point, because he puts a lot of himself out there. But that was a line I was going to draw for myself right there. Not that I was going to keep myself completely off limits, but that I wasn't going to quite go to the level that he did. But that's his style of comedy, that very confessional style of performance, and it's not mine. But he's a huge influence, and I feel like I'm a better person and a richer person and a more aware person just having listened to him for all the years that I've listened to him.
And shockingly enough, I don't like. I've never listened to one of his podcasts, and I really should.
Just find a guest that you like. He's had about 600 of them. So.
And there's no reason that I have not listened to it.
He had Kevin Smith on back in the 300s. You should listen to that one. That's a great episode.
Yeah, there's been a few people that I know he's had on that I've wanted to listen to, and it's back in the day I wasn't doing long form interview podcasts. So like if I at most I think back in the day I was listening to Girl on Guy, and that's even only going back probably 2.5, 3 years. And I don't think Kev Smith started that, format until a little bit more recently. Mm-hmm. So I only started listening to it from I listened to Girl on Guy because I found it from Smodcast when he was doing like guest spots because Scott Mosier was out doing whatever. I was like, oh, Girl on Guy. And then same thing with This Feels Terrible with Erin McGathy. I just kind of found it because she was on Harmontown, and then I just fell in love with this format of long form interview / conversation.
Oh, you can really get a lot done in it too. Like, I mean, the problem is sometimes you'll get into a conversation, you'll get 35 minutes in, and you'll just be like, I think we're going to be done in a minute. Which thankfully hasn't happened to me yet, where like I've had someone in the room and been like, oh crap, what am I going to do for the next 30 minutes? I pick my guests as carefully as I can. to just make sure they're like, look, can we sustain a conversation for 60 minutes? And usually the answer is yes. People love talking about themselves. I'm having a blast right now.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. You give someone the opportunity to talk about themselves, they're usually going to take it. And I think, and not even on this show, I think I've had one guest where like it was maybe only scheduled for 20 minutes, and it was like a struggle to get the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's something that I tell on this show all the time, on this long form interview show, is that I'm a terrible interviewer. Like I am that guy that will have, if I prepare a list of questions, I'll say, all right, Dan, how'd you get started? And you'll answer your question. I won't feed off that answer at all. I'll just go to question number 2.
Question 2. Yes.
I am a terrible interviewer, but I'm really good at having a conversation. Yeah. At least I think I am.
Do you have anything else still on the paper that you haven't gotten to yet that you want to get to?
I'll tell you what's in front of me. I have KFC with barbecue sauce. Like I have a box with barbecue sauce. I wasn't kidding about the KFC.
All right. You somehow managed to go off and get it without
my fiance sent me a text when we first started. She said KFC, and I said absolutely. Yes. And every time you see my little microphone go red on the Zencaster screen, I'm taking a bite of a potato wedge because it's really crunchy.
Yeah.
Just interrupting the show for one quick moment so I can let you guys know that you're listening to this episode with Dan Drago. But guess what? If you flip over to 25o'clockpod.com, you can listen to episode 49 of his podcast and hear me be a guest on his show. That's right. I don't think we timed it like this on purpose, but there's some crossover synergy this week with Everything is Awesome and 25 O'Clock Podcast. That's right. So you're going to get Dan Drago on Everything is Awesome for today and on Friday. And while you're waiting for Friday's episode, you can head on over to 25o'clockpod.com and listen to me do the chatting thing. Thanks, Dan, for having me on your show. It was a whole lot of fun, and also having you on my show was a lot of fun, so thank you for doing that as well. And just as a reminder to everybody, we're both going to be at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. We're both going to be there on August 21st, so you might as well make a whole day of it. That's this Sunday. That's just in a couple days from now. So come on out if you're in the area to Tattooed Moms on South Street in Philadelphia. I'll be on at 2 p.m. with Everything is Awesome, and Dan will be on at 7 p.m. to round out the night. Just hang out. I'm going to be there all day. I'm going to get there before the first show at 1 o'clock. I'm going to hang out until Dan's done doing his thing. So I'm going to be there to support the Podcast Fest for the day. I want to hang out. So if you want to come hang out with some cool Philly podcasters, that's where we'll be. Back to the show. And that was my biggest fault in all my years of podcasting was, I always usually have a beer around me when I'm podcasting, which means there's always usually food somewhere around. Yeah. And like the big no-no on a microphone is you don't eat on mic.
No, you shouldn't even really drink on mic either. Although I drink a lot of water while I'm doing it. My bottle is empty at this point.
Yeah, I the other night I had to go to water because I was just I already felt dehydrated, and to drink beer. But
I'll drink
I also did a show
on the mic maybe with someone, but I typically don't go more than that because I got to be on. If it loosens them up, that's great. But like I'm usually trying to keep it pretty tight on my end.
Yeah, I my first show was called Happy Hour with Steel Tip, and the premise was we're going to drink a new beer every week. So beer is. Yeah, it was, it was such a cool idea that never panned out. Like we did drink a new beer every week but the show only lasted 18 weeks.
That's 18 beers. That's respectable.
And I mean, there was probably multiple weeks of lager and whatever else.
Because this is what we have.
Yeah, exactly. It very quickly turned away from that. And even when I eventually relaunched that show as Simply Happy Hour, it was just, we're going to drink beer. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. I've always kind of said, like, for like a YouTube show, I would want to do a show like Man versus Food, except it would be me drinking whatever like the house drink was, and just go around to a bunch of different places to drink it and talk about it. But that dream faltered when I had kids 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. And it's, as interesting as one thinks it is for people to watch you drink, it's I mean I will say this for myself. I would not be an interesting person to watch drink. It'd be like, what is that? It's scotch. What are you doing? I'm going to drink it, and then when I'm done, I'm going to have another one. It's a very what's his face from Parks and Rec? Ron Swanson is like, this is an 18-year Lagavulin, and I'm going to drink it slowly and sit in silence. Like that's pretty much how I.
That is
I
a spot on impression. Yeah, I've never really watched the show. I just know what he sounds like. He's at the
time I can't believe I forgot his name for a second. I'm like, I love that guy. Him with him and his obsession with Lagavulin is huge for me, because I'm just like, I know what that is. But the idea of like making other people watch me drink and then making people watch me after I've had drinks, I'm just like, I sound like an asshole. Like, why would I? Number one, why would I even want to see that again? And then why would I want to make other people see it? I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion about myself. But getting kind of back to what we were talking about, one of my no-nos in podcasting is if you have to have a panel, and when I say panel, I mean like more than 3. If you've got more than 3 people happening, and then alcohol becomes a part of it, just turn the tape off after 30 minutes. Just turn it off, because no one is going to say, you're just going to get louder, more incoherent, and no one's going to want to listen to it. I was on a podcast once in a band, this was years ago, where we all proceeded to get drunker as the podcast went on. And like to the point where like later, like I told the guy, he put it out and I wasn't going to tell him to take it back, but I was just like, if ever you want to edit out the last 30 minutes of that podcast, I said, I would appreciate that very much. I don't know if it's still out there or not, and I'm not going to give anyone information to find it.
No one's going to find it.
No.
We're not going to give that out.
No. But that's the whole thing, is just like at some point it becomes self-indulgent and you're just like with your buddies, and that's great. But like I don't need to be with my buddies and be on mic. Like that's kind of my thought sometimes, and like I don't know who wants to listen to that.
No, I have a problem with I used to be of the mindset, because the first show I did was 4 guys on a mic. And so for the longest time,
sound like a headache right now when you think about it.
Yes, it was awful. Like that's why it eventually dwindled down to 2 is the perfect number.
2 is great. I'll do 3. I'll do 2 guests. I try not to, but then when it happens, it's usually great. And like, you're going to get to an episode as you roll through in the 30s. With a guy named Ben Tufts and a woman named Jackie Francis. And the original scope of that interview was just going to be Ben. He's a DC musician, he's a drummer, who I knew through other DC musicians from touring. But he came in and he brought one of the other girls who was like in that touring band with him. And like she and I are like the best of friends on Facebook. Like we talk all the time, and I'm so glad that I didn't like try and have rules in that sense. Be like, no, I only do 1 at a time, and I won't even entertain this idea. I was just like, well, you're here, yeah, let's give it a shot, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I just had my first episode with 2 guests on just the other day. The boys from Dissecting the 80s, who will be at the second weekend. Yeah.
I'm gonna try and see as many people as I can during that weekend. I do work during the weekends pretty often, so like sometimes it can be problematic. But like if people are still kicking around tattooed moms in the evening, I will definitely show up for the camaraderie.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be, like I said, I think I will probably be, whenever Tattooed Moms opens on the 21st, I'll end up being there probably around noon to help prep. See, and this is where you have the more experience. I haven't been part of the podcast fest, so I've been sending the guys that run it questions like, what do I need to, like, do I need to bring anything, blah, 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 blah. And like so far it's like all pretty smooth sailing, it sounds like it's going to be. And because this is going to be out before the actual day that we go live, I'm not going to give too much away. But I think I'm planning a very showy like intro. Because like
for an audio medium, which is very important to do. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm the king of doing doing that.
Sight gag on the radio. Yeah.
Yes. And I because me and my buddy were talking about, and like we found the format that we want to do, which at this point I've probably already announced. So we're doing more of like a late night type of feel, like a late night show.
Like panel, you've got guests, and like you'll have a series of like 2 or 3 guests, and you'll kind of bring them on one at a time. Will they continue to sit up there when the other one comes on?
It depends on who I book. So there's going to be 2 guests, and I know one of them who is so the way we're and it's actually not even, the second guy's not even a true guest. We are going to talk to him for a little bit at the end, but I'm doing, because it's only an hour.
Yeah.
We're doing like the monologue, of course, and then we have a little something planned for like a bit, and then we're gonna have like our, hopefully I'm still trying to lock in that main guest, that first guest. But my stand up buddy said, I was like, I really like, we're doing a late night thing, and it's it's not really a venue where I think I can get a musician in there, but like,
I'm definitely gonna try. Like that's like the whole point of the show, is that, especially a live show for me, at least, I have to have someone.
Yes, but my mindset, if thinking a musician, is late night show where you have like a full band.
Yeah.
So
you
like,
can just get a singer-songwriter. You can get somebody who can strip it down. That's what I do, and can't really do full band down here, although I have done it once.
Yeah, that is for future live show, because now hopefully this leads into me. I would love to do this like every other month. Like that's the dream, like, is doing a live version of the show on a somewhat regular basis.
Well, you find a venue for it, man. I'm on board.
Oh God, I would love.
Interesting. I'd be interested to kind of get almost like in the style of like like the once a month cabaret type variety shows that have kind of come back into vogue over the last several years, which I love. Like, I think that's great. I love that style of entertainment right there. But if you find a venue and find someone, I'm gonna put it all on you, really. If you find a venue and do all the work, I'll show up and look cool. Like, I'm happy.
Fair. That's fair.
I'm happy to do that.
That's fair. No, I would love to do something.
That's not fair at all. Stop saying that's fair.
I would love to find a venue where it is like you have like 2 or 3 podcasts, like make it a 3-hour night. That's not, for a night out, that's not like too much time to ask of people, and just do like a fun little night where you're getting 3 shows for the price of 1, and it's going to be a good time. And so I'll keep that. Yeah. Have stripped down musician. It would totally 100% make sense for that and ending segment. But for this show, we're going with a stand-up comedian.
Oh, great.
Who at this point we've already announced is Garrett Smith, my buddy. He'll be doing like a 5-minute set, and then we'll sit down and talk with him at the end of the show. And also, by the time this airs, we've announced who the main guest is.
Oh, okay.
At the time of recording, we're still trying to book that main guest.
I don't know who I'm going to have on. It's something I suppose I better figure out damn quick.
Yeah, well, I know who I want. It's just a matter of will they say yes.
I don't even know who I want. I may just go to the well. It's the joy of having as many episodes. I may just go to the well.
Well, and that may end up being what we do. We may end up having to do something like that. But getting Aaron McGathy was great for me, just because it was like just a bucket list item for this podcast. But it also is bad because now I'm like, well, I clearly can ask anyone to do the show, and they're going to say yes.
I mean, you can ask anyone. That's the one thing I've learned in doing this is that it never hurts to ask, and the worst thing is that someone says no, thank you. I was trying. So back on episode 20. I had a guy on named Joe Reinhardt, who plays
one of my favorites,
who plays guitar for the band Hop Along, who are just phenomenal and who are just continue to blow up. And sometimes I would roll my eyes at a band that does that, but they're fully deserving of every accolade that they get right now. But their front woman, her name is Frances. I am just absolutely taken by her voice, and I think that she's an amazing front woman, and I wanted to talk to her. So I went through the normal channels. I went through their press department and all that. And after a few emails of batting back and forth, I got just a very polite email being like, we're not looking to do this at this time. Thanks for being interested. And that was the email. So I shot back. So I there's a little rejection right there. You're just like, okay, but I shot back an email real quick being like, hey, thanks for even reaching out to me to tell me no. Like, I appreciate that. You guys seem like a class act. If you ever change your mind or anything ever changes, I said, I just left. I said, the door is always open, and I left it. Got a little note back from them being like, hey, thanks for being cool. So in that, when I was younger, I might have just gotten pissed off and been like, they don't want a thing. They're not, they're not interested, blah, blah, blah. And now it's just like, no, I get it, because I have a lot more of an understanding of kind of what they're trying to do on their end as well. But my whole point of that is that you never know who you're going to get until you ask. And I didn't even think I would get Joe Reinhardt on the show. He produces records too. He produced the Modern Baseball record that came out this year that's really good. He's produced a bunch of really great indie rock bands for like proper labels and everything.
And I'll tell you what, that episode, for whatever reason, was one of the favorites that I listened to, and it's probably right around where I'm at. I think the Podcast Fest Part 1 is after that, or shortly after that, and that's, I think, where I left off. But the Joe Reinhardt episode, I don't know if it was because it was a really great interview, or I swear that name is familiar to me. Like when I saw it on my the feed, I was like, Joe Reinhardt.
Did you go to Drexel?
No, I didn't. No, I'm a college dropout. That's how success. I found success.
You could have gone and then dropped out. Like that could have been a thing.
I went to good old Bucks County Community College for a little bit and then dropped out. But no, I didn't go to Drexel, and I don't know if I feel like did he say in the interview he was from the Yardley area? Yeah,
and he used to be in a band called they're called like Algernon Cadwalder or something like that. They're like an emo band from like the early mid 2000s.
I feel like, because I'm from Levittown, and I so very close to Yardley.
You guys are really close in age too. So.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like maybe if he lived in Yardley, he went to my high school, so I guess that's where I know the name. But I'm like that episode has always fascinated me. I'm like, why the hell do I know his name?
Yeah.
Like,
he's a cool dude. I love running into him now too, because he's incredibly tall, so I can see him coming from across the room. And it's funny because some people I have on the show and then I never really talk to them again for no other reason, and that's just how life works. But for him, every time I run into him in the world, he's just always seems to be super stoked to see me, and I'm just like, cool, man. Like, he's an awesome dude. He's a great guitar player and a really great producer. Again, did not think I could have him on the show. Thought he was out of my league. Got his email from a friend of mine who had worked with him on a record and sent an email out. And within like a week of me making the initial contact, he was on the show. Sometimes it works that way. Sometimes you just boom can make it happen, and sometimes it takes 4 months to get it together. I'm still trying to get there's a guitar maker in Philadelphia named Chris DePinto who has a shop called DePinto's up on Girard, and he and I were going back and forth email wise almost a year ago, and we just couldn't nail a date down, so the email just sort of fizzled out. But every once in a while in the back of my mind, I'd be like, I should really hit Chris up again and sort of start this again. I don't think that he would be put off by it at all. I think he'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, sure. Let's give it a try now, because it just schedule-wise, it just didn't seem to be happening a year ago. But, a lot changes in a year. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I had a guy who, I think 8 episode, I don't know, in the teens, Ace Marrero, who's an actor out west. We literally have been talking about doing an interview for a different show like 3 years ago. So like it finally happened. So I'm sending the emails out now, and like, all right, I still have time before we have to have someone in. So I'm taking my time, being patient, using social media as a first resource. And if I can't if I can't get them through that, well, my first action's always like going to their website and finding contact info there, then social media, then digging a little bit harder. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, so yeah, we're doing like a little bit of a late night thing. That I'm like, when my buddy suggested it to me, I was like, that makes so much sense. Like 5 years ago, I said I would love to find a way to do like a late night show in new media. I just never did it. So this is like a dream come true almost. Like being able to do like a late night format live in front of a studio audience. I guess.
No, it is. It is fun. It is fun, especially if everyone's into it and everyone's pretty attentive. And based on my experience last year, everyone who's in the room is pretty attentive. Everyone's into it. I will say that they do. The best way to endear an audience towards you is to involve them. So any way that you can involve them, definitely do that. I do that the best I can, but I'm still very much talking to a guest up there. Yeah. So,
well, so 9 years ago, the way we did that is we had a habanero pepper eating contest.
There you go. That's a thing.
I can't put my body through that again. So.
No, please don't. But you could get someone else to do it. I guarantee you.
No, we have some cool things planned that I'm not sure if we're announcing ahead of time or not. So I'm not going to say it here, but we do have some cool things planned that is going to get the audience involved. There may be prizes involved. I don't know, and it's going to be. I'm really excited. It's going to be a fun time. So make sure to kind of round out this interview. Most important thing is make sure you check out 25 o'clock on the interwebs. Go ahead and give your plugs.
Oh, it's 25o'clockpod.com. That's the home, the internet home. And you can do everything there. All my archives are up there. There's no paywall on anything. Everything's free. You can download everything going all the way back to episode 1. And you can join the mailing list. I send an email out every couple of weeks to sort of announce.
Send one out with every episode, right?
Yeah, with every episode. I get a little more. I expose a little more of me in the email than I probably do in any other way. That's just because I do. And for the people who hang out or actually join the email list, the email list and the blog post used to be one and the same. And a few months ago, I stopped that and decided that the blog post for the episode was going to be a tight little paragraph about what was going on in the episode, and that the email was going to be a little more for the people who are really, for the people who are in enough that they want to get the email. And I get the analytics and people do read it. So that's nice.
I think I have a list of, I have them all saved for when I catch up to those episodes from whenever I signed up.
Well, up to a certain point, the blog post and the email are exactly the same. Up to really not that long ago. And
I remember reading the newsletter that announced that change.
I'm done. Yes, right up in the top. Yeah. And sometimes I get feisty in those emails where I just like something is bugging me and I just want to rail about it a little bit. But I try and keep it tight. And like I said, I only send it every couple of weeks. So, I'm not blowing up your mailbox. And then there's also a whole links page on there on 25o'clockpod.com that I call the friends and neighbors. And that's basically anyone and everyone who's ever had anything to do with the show. If I've played their band, if they've been a guest, there's a link on there where you can check out more stuff. And it's mostly in order. So, like, if you jump back down to the bottom of the page, you'd have the earlier guests as up at the top. What else but 25o'clockpod.com? That's it, really. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. The episodes are all up on YouTube now. That's been a feature through Libsyn that I was able to use. I'm in the process of sort of corralling them all into a playlist so that, one could just save the playlist if that was how you wanted to listen to it. But they've got little hits on them. So I guess people are finding them or else thinking there's something else completely and listening to 5 seconds of it.
It's always that's whenever I see podcasts go up on there that aren't video podcasts, I guess that's where they're coming from. Libsyn. It always, I'm like, that's a weird place to like play them.
But it's a place I could put it with literally no effort on my part. Like totally. Same thing with Google Play. Like I'm up on there somewhere, I think, and I'm on iTunes as well. Just search 25 o'clock podcast. I'm out there on the web. I could probably do a lot better job sort of cultivating an online presence, but I'm only one man. I'm only one man, and I'm one man with sort of a general disdain for social media anyway. So like I engage, but like fairly reticently and often with a bit of snark going in the background. I've often said that if I had never been in a band, I probably would be like that guy who doesn't have a Facebook page. That would be me.
Yeah. I'm not I'm not huge. I'm bad at Facebook. I'm a fan of Twitter. Twitter's like a great place for me to just go and throw little things out there.
Yeah, it's more concise and focused. I never got a Twitter until I started the podcast. So,
I've Facebook for me has turned into like a place to like throw up family photos and stuff.
It's turned into a place for me lately where I just kind of want to die. But I mean, everyone who's out there, it's so odd to like, if I were to base what is actually going on in the world with my Facebook feed, I would probably try and burn this place to the ground. I really would. There's a great Robin Hitchcock quote. He's a British singer-songwriter from the 70s to now, from the 80s to now, and he basically says that like as a human animal, he's quite happy just with the general sensory aspects of life, of eating and living and being outside and stuff like that. But as a thinking person, he generally just wants to die, and that's pretty much how I am a lot of the time. Like I love life, I love eating, I love scotch. I sound like Ron Burgundy, but and I like being with my wife. I like hanging out with my friends. I like going outside. I like swimming. I like listening to music and watching bands, all that sensory input stuff. I'm into it. I love to be alive. But if I have to think about it too much, I'll crawl into bed and never come out.
Yeah. But the way you feel about Facebook is how like I feel about Snapchat, which is like the new big one. And like I that's where I know I'm officially getting old now, because like I that's where I get my old man glasses on and say, Snapchat, what is this whippersnapper social media?
The only thing I use that for is so my brother can send me quick little videos of my 1-year-old nephew.
Okay.
That I dig. I've kind of, because we don't live in the same place. It's been kind of cool and I see him so sporadically throughout the year. It's cool to kind of watch him kind of become from a baby into slowly becoming an almost walking baby now, where if without Snapchat, I wouldn't have really seen this stuff happen. We also G-chat too, which is great. But like, it's cool to get these little, and it's cool like throughout my day, throughout like just the regular, daily life, to get these little 15-second videos of a child just like flopping around in the grass. And I'm just like, yeah. I can't really reciprocate and send him videos. I send him videos of the things I do because I don't have a kid. I'm like I'll send him like, hey, we jumped the train to New York for the weekend. Here's New York City because we can. That's what I sent him Snapchat stuff.
Of how you can live life to the fullest because you're not held back by kids.
Like, check out this wine that I got. La la la. I have money for it.
Yep. Kids suck everything out of you, but they're awesome.
I get that, and who knows? Maybe one day I'll take the jump. Well, I mean, I will take the jump as well. But right now, like I said, as a human, as a sensory human, I'm quite happy with the way things are.
One of my favorite things this will be one of the last things we talk about before I wrap up, is whenever my son gets into the mood of wanting to come out to the shed and like talk on the mic. That's
does he dig the mic?
Yeah. He actually has one of the microphones that I had, one of my cheap Radio Shack ones, in the room, in his bedroom.
You're creating a monster already, man.
Oh yeah, we have, and they actually are probably airing around when this airs. I was convinced to finally put up I think we recorded 3 episodes, like 3 5-minute episodes of this thing called Kid Chat.
Oh, cool.
And where he talks about a topic and he intros the show with some guidance and he outros the show with some guidance and it's now it's too hot to come out here even at like 7 p.m. But like in the fall and spring, I try to bring him out here as much as possible for us to like sit down and just record a podcast together. It's one of the coolest experiences I've had in podcasting.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, so that's basically creating a little because my fiance, if I start talking to her and it lasts more than 3 sentences, she gets very angry with me and says, "You can whatever you need to say. I don't care anymore." So
Podcaster, like
no, just in general. Like
okay.
No. She supports me doing the podcast. She does not support me. Yeah, she because as everyone knows, I'm a very long-winded talker, and that happens in the house too. So, and the kids take after me in that aspect, and she hates every minute of it.
Oh, that's great.
The three of us are just talking, and talking to her, and she just looks at us. I want 2 minutes of silence. Just please shut up. It's wonderful. Anyway, make sure you check out, as I said, August 21st, 2016, 2 p.m. You can check out my live show. Everything is awesome at Tattooed Moms, but stay for the whole day because you'll end the night with a much more talented talk show, 25 o'clock with Dan Drago.
Yes, and afterwards we'll go drinking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I plan on hanging out for the night.
Yeah,
and then I'm going to try to check out some stuff on Saturday at the comic book shop, and then the second weekend I'm really busy. I'm going to try to get. There's one podcast that I really want to try to catch, but I don't know if the kid life will allow me to.
Yeah. No, I get that. I don't know if the work life will allow me to, but I'm in for the part that I said I was in for. So.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna try to check out that whole day plus a little some after that. But thank you for being on the show.
Oh, man,
it took us a couple weeks, a couple months, but we finally did it.
Yeah.
And anytime, I guess at this point we'll just be sitting around bullshitting, but anytime you want to just waste 2 hours of your life, we can totally do it on Everything is Awesome.
I could have been watching a film that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah. I mean, I like to always, if anyone wants to kind of lowbrow it, this is the show to do it at. Like, you can just come.
Oh, it's called lowbrow. I don't think it's slumming. I mean, it's for someone, like myself, for someone who talks to other people, but very much puts the focus on them. It's nice every once in a while to have it kind of turned on you for what that's worth. I can't 100%. Say I do it all the time. I would probably start to get sick of myself, but for now,
if I could be a guest on a podcast a week, in addition to what I'm doing now, I would do it. I am that guy that's like, I just want to hear myself all the time.
I do too, and then I recognize that as not being entirely healthy sometimes. So.
Yeah, no. Well, and so there's a good reason why the kids rein me in because I
that's
have
good.
to
that's good.
Pay attention to them.
Way to go, kids. Good job, kids.
Yeah, they know how to keep me in check. They know when I talk too much too. Even they get bothered by it sometimes.
Great.
Okay, so make sure you check out 25o'clockpod.com.
25o'clockpod.com. That's correct.
Check that out. Check out phillypodfest.com for the official schedule of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest 2016. The 4th annual, if I read the website correctly.
Yeah, I can't remember 3rd or 4th. Yeah, it's the 2nd year I've been involved. So yeah.
So, and it's going to be the lineup is there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to now that are going to be here at the Podcast Fest. So we're in great company. If you're a fan of podcasts, you got to come out and check out at least a day or two over the 5 days that they're doing it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll have a good time. And at the worst case, you get to have some beers with friends.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
Tattooed Moms is a great establishment. It's a South Street legend. Tattooed Mom.
Yeah,
So.
I'm really excited to really play that up because I'm that guy. I'm the Mick Foley of podcasting. So
you have a sock on your hand, like.
Well, no, I just do the cheap pops.
Gotcha.
I should bring Mr. Sacco. Okay. All right. Make sure you check out this show on Twitter at Real Awesome Pod. You can check me out on Twitter, which is where I usually do all my tweeting, at HHWST. And of course, you can find this show on the interwebs at awesomepodcast.com. Thanks for being on the show, Dan. And thanks to everyone, all the super friends for listening. We'll see you next time right here on awesomepodcast.com.